Benson and the greatest American hero won't be seen tonight.
I don't believe it.
But they'll return soon. Now stay tuned for the following special presentation.
Please support the Word Balloon podcast by going to patreon.com/wordballoon. Become a part of the League of Word Balloon listeners. That's patreon.com/wordballoon. Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Happy to welcome Gavin Guidry to Word Balloon. Gavin, it's great to see you. I had a great conversation with Lemire a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about your great art, and he got me all excited for an upcoming issue. We're only a couple weeks away from JSA number 8, and it's going to be a flashback, but we'll get to that. But welcome, man. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. You too. I'm excited to be on. Like I've tweeted before, that Word Balloon and I go pretty far back as a listener. So it's kind of cool to, it's another thing to get to enjoy about going from being a fan, dreaming of having this job, to having this job and having the little things that come with it, which is, being on shows like yours that I grew up listening to as a teenager.
That's great to hear, man. Seriously, that's a hell of a compliment. I really appreciate that. And man, people are already excited in the chat that you're in, man. Near says Gavin Guidry represent. And Atomic Hound says my local comic shop is on notice to pull all Gavin drawn issues and variants. Excellent.
Nice. Yeah,
very cool.
There's another comics channel called Comics Pals, and I hang out there on streams often. And these are some regulars from over there that popped over. That's really, really nice to see. Hey, guys.
That's excellent. That's great, man. What other, and seriously, I ask not from a competition standpoint, but I'm always curious to hear about other comic book podcasts. What do you watch or listen to?
What I mostly do is I jump on live streams because I'm working so frequently that it's nice to have something for a few hours on the background. And I like to hop in the chat and mix it up, but the main ones are Comics Pals, Blurred Without Fear, with my buddy Ernie, and Sal at Comic Pop. And I'll
Craig Ollie. Yeah, I love Sal. Yeah. Great guy.
They do them during the day, which is easier for me to catch as opposed to some ones that are like later interviews like this at night. Usually I'm, officially off, hopefully officially off at this point.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man, and then coming on at night. Every now and then I try, especially the Europeans, I try to accommodate during, daytime hours and stuff, our daytime hours. So, but you're in New Orleans. Everything okay, man? Yeah. I mean, weather, did the weather hit you at all in the various months of destruction?
We had a weird few months. So the hurricane came by and missed us. But then we ended up just a few weeks before that, we had like a once in a 200 year snowstorm. Like I had never seen snow ever until I was 18.
Wow.
And it was going to college in Memphis for it to snow. And then I came back for winter break that year and it snowed here too. But I mean, it was like an inch or two. I got almost 9 inches at my house. So
wow.
It was crazy. And for having 3 kids, it was great to have them get to experience that. Cause like I said, I was 18. My oldest has now gotten snow twice because it snowed when she was 4 or so. So it's been 7 years, she's 11. And then of course my younger 2 now got to experience it and make snowmen, actual snowmen, and then not like using all the snow on the ground to make the snowman. We still had snow left over. It was kind of incredible. But yeah, we're in a precarious position geographically for certain storms sweeping through.
Understood. I'm looking at the chat because Dennis acknowledges you've been on a tear, man. Superman 78, Birds of Prey, Patrick Todd. I don't know Patrick Todd.
So Patrick Todd is a book that I was doing with Ed Brisson over at Aftershock. and we only got 4 issues out before everything hit the fan. I was about to start on issue 5, but I had already been hired for Superman 78, with the idea that I would finish that first. And then once it got bad enough there where, they were behind on payments for a lot of people. At one point, they owed me for 2 months. That I got paid, thankfully, but I was like, no, I'm going pencils down. I've got other stuff. I'm my wife wasn't working. I've got 3 kids. So, all my income is in comics. So I was like, I'm not sitting around and struggling, making my life harder and harder and harder without you guys carrying up your end of the deal. So like I said, I was lucky I did get paid, but we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with the rights before we can come back and finish. It really stinks having 4 of 5 out because so many people are now like, "Ooh, but how's it end?" And you're like, "Oh, well, who knows? We got to see. We got to see how things go there before we can really assess whether or not we can come back and finish it." I know Ed and I both want to.
I hope you guys do. I'm always in contact with Aftershock as well. I have friends there, and I know that they're unfortunately bankruptcy has been kind of in the news with Diamond and everything. But I do know in the case of Aftershock, they are reorganizing and they are working really hard to get the people that are owed money paid. Like you, I was paid, so I'm okay. But yeah, I certainly feel for our mutual friends like Ed and others that are in that, and especially when you got 1 issue left. And I mean, I believe editorially, I can't speak for them, but my assumption is, especially if they've got 4 issues, they want to finish it because they want to get the trade out there and everything.
Sure, right. That's an opportunity for them to hopefully make some income that'll help cover other things. Yeah.
No, I get it, man. This is nice, and here you're guys from the Comics Pals. One of the
there they are.
Got to agree, man. Again, I showed that Superman 78 cover, and you were so kind. I had no idea you put me in Superman 78, which is what an honor. My God, there's one panel of me.
Yeah,
and here's a great headshot of me. I sadly accurate, although I'm working, Gavin. I'm trying to. I had 3 chins at my heaviest. Now I'm down to 2, so I'm working on getting that last one done.
Look, I've bounced up and down on my own. I mean, like, especially doing this job, it's so hard to not be sedentary all the time.
I get it, buddy.
So,
I have
I hear
30
you.
years of radio sitting down in front of a microphone, so I understand. Believe me, totally understand. But no, that's great. So was it just 1 arc for Superman?
We just did 1 arc. So they did the original arc was with Wilfredo Torres. And they did a story with Brainiac. And then Wilfredo had a creator-owned thing that he put off to do that first arc. And so then he was like, well, okay, I did my Superman. I'm going to go do this creator-owned thing with Matt Kent. And so they needed to replace him. And they reached out to me. And it was my first big 2 work officially at all. So it was kind of like shocking to get that nod and have it be something so significant, like not only Superman, but Christopher Reeve having its own dedicated, loyal fan base who really, he means so much specifically to so many people, that it was crazy not to be like doing some C-list throwaway thing that they're just kind of testing things out on, be giving essentially the keys of the kingdom kind of in that sense, and getting to work with Robert. So yeah, we did the follow-up to the Brainiac arc. So now it's kind of in the early 80s and it's Cold War Russia. And we did a like a power suit Cold War Russian Metallo. So he's in this big bulky suit that's kind of, if you can see the design, is built a little bit off of Lex's power suit in terms of the chest design and stuff. But he's, cool. A big mean tank.
So who was I in this story?
You are a Russian newspaper man. I figured would be the most appropriate, right?
I love it.
Yeah,
seriously,
you're in Moscow.
What a high compliment, honestly, man. I truly, I was just tweeting I still call it tweeting. I'm sure we all do.
Oh no, I do too.
But Tom King put me in the Black Canary Black Label thing. Although, and it's
awesome.
Well, it's a character based on me because he's a boxing commentator, but he made me a person of color. Not that there's anything wrong with that. So it doesn't look like me. And he kind of, purposely John Sunters, I believe, was how he billed me, and I guess for legal reasons, because I'd sue in a heartbeat if they did it without my authorization.
No,
but it was great.
Part of the fun is kind of sneaking things in, right? Like, my family, we're in almost in everything that I've done, almost everything I've done. If you read it all, you can see in several books my family go from me and my wife and my oldest to having all three of my kids in the backgrounds of several things, including I did an indie book, a self-published book called 33, and there's a scene set in a hospital, and as the main characters are walking into the hospital, me, my wife, and my oldest are coming out with my son, my middle kid, leaving the hospital. So I was like, it's kind of fun to transition.
What are the ages of your kids?
Now, 11, 6, and 3.
Wow. So are they all? I mean, obviously, the 3-year-old may not be as aware of what Dad does, but the 6-year-old and the 11-year-old, are they psyched that you're a comic book artist?
I think that there are aspects of it that they enjoy, but they don't think that it's anything other than what everybody's dad does. It's a very weird thing to try to get them to understand that, like, most dads leave every single day to go to a job in an office and do a thing, or at a store or whatever, for 8 to 10 hours and then come home. Whereas me, I mean, I'm here all the time. I travel obviously for shows, and they have to deal with that angle of getting used to me being gone for 5 or 6 days here or there.
Sure.
But I mean, if that's only once a month and I'm here all the other time, they do get into some of, like, if I'll have the opportunity, like, I've got friends who draw Sonic, and they think that's really awesome because they love Sonic. My son gets excited when he sees me drawing certain characters, but it's more of a thing of like, "Oh, you're drawing the Flash?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm drawing the Flash, like on a cover or a commission or something." But they don't quite, they're not quite clued in on how it's the same thing that you hear from like musicians, where it's like, "No, my kid just thinks this is life," But my oldest so far, she's the one that's really showing interest in trying to want to draw herself. I don't know if she would be doing comics per se, but she draws all the time. It's kind of like a little happy place thing for her, where if we just set her down with some pencils and paper, she'll just chill. And that was me. I drew all the time, always. I would go to family functions. They'd be pulling out dot matrix paper, and I'd be drawing.
That's great, man. No, I get it. And I'm a horrible artist, but my art friends will get together and just do like a hangout where they're all sketching and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "John, just color." And I'm like, that's a great idea. And you're absolutely right. I know from coloring, it is just so soothing, and just you focus in, you turn everything off, and it's a really great way to chill.
It's a very zen thing. Like, in terms of making comics for me, the thumbnail stage is cerebrally the most involved. It is the hardest. Labor wise, penciling can be the hardest because of it's where you're refining everything. But inking is just like this beautiful zen thing. Like, you can get hung up on how long it takes because you're wanting to get through pages quickly. But to me, it's kind of like I can turn my brain off for the most part and just go with it. And I love inking. That's part of why I don't know if I would ever give that part of the process up, because not only am I proficient, but like it suits such a part of my style is how I ink. And also I just like it so much. It's the soothing, calming part, unless you have like a crick in your neck like I have right now, and in which case it's painful.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. No, you were telling me off the air and everything that you're kind of in pain right now. So I appreciate you playing hurt tonight.
It's just one of those things about, I'm in my mid-30s now, so all of a sudden, if I don't get the proper permits to sleep in a certain position, I'm gonna pay the price.
It only gets worse, man. I'm sorry. Believe me, I was the same way. You're right, man. You're sprinting in your 20s and early 30s, and all of a sudden it's like, man, I can't do all-nighters like I used to anymore, man. And it only gets worse. I'm sorry.
It was simple things like, I mean, even just like drinking or even having a cold, and like, oh yeah, colds used to be 3 or 4 days at the most, and now it's like I got 10 days for me to finally get rid of whatever this cough is.
How about traveling? Because honestly, when I come back from a convention, I need one. I mean, right now I am working from home like you, but when I had an 8-hour job, I'd build in an extra day off just to be able to sleep.
Oh yeah,
and snap back and everything. Because really, I'd be wiped out after a con weekend.
Yeah, it doesn't wipe me out, but I'm such a scheduled person that if I go to a con schedule of getting up or staying up late for those few days, then I come home and try to adjust back to like some semblance of a waking kids up early to go to school schedule, I'm up at 3 in the morning.
I get it.
You know, like I can only go out with Declan in New York till 4 a.m. 5 days in a row and not have it affect my schedule when I come home.
We were talking about Deck off the air, and I'll show a Time Before Time cover that Gavin did. Yeah, Deck is one of my favorite people. I think.
I love
and man, you've done, because you also did Old Dog with him, right?
Yeah, I did. He was pitching me on this anthology book that he wanted to do when we were together at a show in Columbus, Ohio. And me, him, and Marco Rudy hung out all, just like the Three Musketeers. We were together all weekend. Yeah, and he pitched me on that, where he was going to do like this 80 pager where he was going to do one story and then he was going to have nothing but other people come in and do really short things to kind of bridge the gap as supplemental material. And I was like, sold. I'm there 100%. And then I got to work with Charles Soule, which is amazing.
I love
and
Charles.
I got to kind of experiment with things that I don't normally get to do. So I had a lot of fun with that.
That's great, man. Yeah, you've really lucked out. You've had a lot of great collaborators that you've been with, man.
Yeah, I've been very, very fortunate. I mean, even like with colors and stuff, I've worked with Jordy and Matt Wilson, and they're two of the absolute best. And it's easy to get spoiled. I'm trying to find that love connection, because I would love to kind of fall in with someone who I can work with all the time. But unfortunately, those two are way too busy, or in exclusive situations where Matt will color me whenever I go to Marvel, but that's only on the occasion in comparison to how frequently I'm at DC.
I understand. Here, more comments from the chat.
Sure.
Let's see. I want to make sure I'm getting everybody here. Ange says, really love Gavin on Superman 78. The expressive work there, especially between Lois and Superman, were brilliant. Dennis says, excited for the book with Alejandro. Goats Flying Press has put out some gorgeous books. We're going to talk about that. You were telling me about that in the chat when we were setting this up. And let's see. He goes, or Atomic Hound, Superman 78, The Metal Curtain, great comic book and representation of the tensions in the world at that time. Yeah, Cold War story. Synchro Shadowhound says, can't stay for long, but John, great job at the Music Box this past weekend. Oh, that's nice, man. Yeah, I moderated. They showed the Alex Ross documentary.
Oh, whoa. Okay, awesome.
And I'm in it, which is
was
crazy.
It incredible?
Oh, yeah. It turned out amazing, man. And yeah,
I love
comic
book docs. I love docs about comic creators. They don't have enough.
And it's, man, they have upped their game. I mean, really, man, I remember when I first broke in, starting to do Word Balloon, there are people with camcorders. And again, no disrespect to those people, but, they're doing camcorders and they're doing Artist Alley interviews, and they were great. But now they're really becoming very film, high quality, efforts and everything. And no, Ramsey Atassi, the director, he did a great job. And Sal Abenanti, the producer, it's great. And yeah, they're like, hey, we want you in it. I'm like, really? And they're like, well, yeah, man. They're like, you know what you're talking about. And I'm like, all right. And it was great. And then, this premiere, they're like, hey, we need you to moderate. And Music Box is this showplace theater in the city that I've been going to since I was a kid. And they show old Hollywood movies and cult movies and foreign films. So to be on that stage and doing a Q&A, I felt like Ben Mankiewicz on Turner Classic Movies. It was pretty cool. So it was great, all right. Yeah. But enough about me. Back to comments about you. Ange says, kept hoping for another Superman 78 that brought in Helen Slater's Supergirl. Sure, man. And Dennis says, love the Old Dog story. And yeah, he called it that. It was Charles Soule that wrote
Charles Soule. That's right.
Yeah, there you go. So we're up to date on the chat.
So Superman 78, I know that Robert and I have talked about it, and Andrew, the editor, and I have talked about it, but it's one of those things where the publisher wants to have it and Batman tied together in terms of release schedules, and Batman being behind. When you're having two books that you want to have it in sync, it becomes that much more complicated, because now you have 10 moving parts instead of 5. So theoretically, we'll be able to hopefully come back and do some more. Batman should be wrapping up soon, and then I know Robert has plans, and I know Andrew has plans. So if they'll have me, I'd love to come back, because it sounds like a no-brainer, or a dumb thing to have arrived at as like my genius career mind. But like, I got to the point where I was like, you know what, I would gladly draw more Superman for my career. Having drawn him now as much as I have, he really, like, it just feels good. It really just does. And I've always loved and appreciated the character, but he was never like my character the way that like Spider-Man was or Batman was for me as a kid. Um, but like as an adult, especially having children and being of my politics, the world getting kind of darker as I got older, both from I'm sure my perspective, just because I'm seeing more, but also the world feels a little bit darker in general than it was 15, 20 years ago. The Paragon characters started to matter a lot more to me. Captain America, Superman, and so, getting to work on a YA Captain America book, I was helping out Brent Schoonover work on that, and then getting to do Superman back to back as like my big two things was kind of great to get to touch on those characters that just care and try and want to do the right thing at all times. And Superman just feels kind of like home at this point. So I really, I'm excited that I got to come back and do action, least of all because it's Action Comics, which is incredible. 1930. It was issue 1085 and
Okay.
1086, and I'm used to writing on my boards issue 12, issue 5. So just that legacy alone as a nerd is so incredible, that like getting to add my name to that list of people for all time who've worked on it is incredible. And getting to come back to Superman in general and work with again G. Willow Wilson was great. I mean, what more can I say? I've been very fortunate to get to do some really cool things pretty early on, and drawing Superman more often than any other character has been one of them for sure.
Are you psyched for the movie? Obviously, then.
I am hyped, and it's a really fun situation for me because one of my favorite convention chains, GalaxyCon, really my favorite convention chain, is having their first ever New Orleans show that weekend. And I'm going to be there with a bunch of other creators who've also worked with Superman. So I'm trying to get it set up so that we can have a theater rented and have
Oh
everyone go
wow.
see the movie together.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't think of a better thing to do than to watch Superman with a bunch of other pros, especially people who have been in the industry for as long as someone like a Kevin McGuire and has that history with the character, who's going to be here too. So I'm very, very excited, and I hope that we end up having a very good weekend that weekend. And the movie's great. I mean, I'm excited about Fantastic Four too. I think this
Me too.
July is kind of shaping up to be the first really, really big superhero month in a long time in terms of multiple releases from different companies that both look good. Because it's been a while, I feel like, since both were kind of hitting at the same time.
I completely agree, man. No, really, both. You're right. Both sides of the street, DC and Marvel, when it comes to movies, they've been slipping. And I'm. It feels like Superman and Fantastic Four. Also, Thunderbolts. Did you see Thunderbolts?
No, only because it's just so hard for me to go to the movies at this point that I have to really pick and choose.
Sure.
But I was one of the from my perspective early people who when I first saw the trailer I was like, oh, this tone I'm here for. This will be good. And there were still people who were poo pooing it, but I was like, I think this will be good. And the word of mouth so far is great. So I'm
It is
definitely going
great.
to see it. I just
Yeah,
don't know if I'll go to theaters.
I respect that, and especially that you've got 3 kids, and I would say that it might be a little disturbing for the kids, given that the Sentry is in it, and they really
Right.
play up the Sentry's psychosis. But that said, I think the only thing that's holding it back from not having the crazy box office numbers that great Marvel movies have had in the past is, these are C
Oh
level
yeah.
heroes, and I understand that. So yeah, and also, frankly, we've gotten burned, since Endgame on a lot of the movies. I mean, and I talk about it all the time on the show, and it's like, even Captain America, and I was rooting for Anthony Mackie to have a good Captain America movie. I didn't feel it. I got to be honest with you. It's
Really?
going to be on
Yeah.
Disney soon, but so it really was like, oh, thank God, man. It looks like they got their mojo. And no, I'm with you on Fantastic Four First Family, and yeah, Superman looks great, and James Gunn. I mean, he gets it. He got the
Yeah.
Guardians. He got Creature Commandos. I love, and I always get it wrong. Peacekeeper. I hope not
Peace
Peacemaker, or maybe it is
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker. It is Peacemaker.
Peacemaker.
See, I get it wrong every time. Every time. That stupid George Clooney Nicole Kidman movie
Oh
continues
man.
to screw me up from back in the day. But anyway, no,
But
it's like
I agree.
he,
Like as soon as they announced James, I was like, oh no, okay, I get it. James does gross out weird stuff and he does like humor, but James is also really good at character writing and not plot writing. He does character-based stories, but
Yep.
also really good at injecting heart. And so for
Yes.
me, those were the two big things missing. I don't hate Zack Snyder the same way a lot of other people do, but I
No.
find Zack makes scenes, not movies.
Agreed.
So he has these beautiful visuals, and they have theme, and they feel big, but they don't connect, and you don't really get a through line in a way that you would want. And I think James is going to be. I think he's going to hit it right down the park. And I mean, then he added crypto. I mean, I'm one of the people that from the jump is like, oh, crypto's in here. That's a bonus. Fantastic. I love it.
I adore crypto. I'm so with you, man. I keep telling the story about when my sister's 5 years older. So when she was 10 and I was 5, we got a family dog, but it was her birthday. And, what are we going to name him? And I'm like, crypto,
Oh no.
crypto. And she's like, Whiskers. And I'm like, all right, it's her dog. Even
Whiskers,
at 5,
God.
I'm like, all right, it's
Yeah.
her dog, but, and he was fast. So we called him Whisk. So he was
Nice.
so fast.
Oh, that
So
works
that was
out.
cool.
Okay, yeah.
But
Yeah,
no, I'm so crypto in the movie. It's just like, oh, there he is, and I know he looks different than the Silver Age. I don't care. It's crypto.
but it's one of those things where the way comic books are done now, for the most part, like every artist who comes in is kind of given so much leeway with the approach to certain characters that crypto kind of changes here and there. As long as the spirit's there
yeah,
and the cape's there, we know it's crypto.
exactly.
He doesn't have to be the exact. Like some people have him kind of as a short hair mutt or something like a Labrador. I like to think of him as a Labrador.
Yeah,
But like I'm not gonna kick this crypto out of bed for eating crackers. Look at him, he's adorable.
and I mean,
Also,
come
he
on,
he could
man.
destroy me.
Your kids are gonna want like a little
Oh
plushy
yeah.
crypto toy. Give me a break.
Well, and
Perfect for
here's
a
the
toy.
thing. My kids have a crypto plush toy because when I was a teenager at my local comic shop, they had one on the shelf, and I was like, you know what? I want that crypto. And I
Attaboy.
had my friends giving me so much shit about it because I was like 17 and just getting crypto because crypto was a butt of a joke at that point. It was 2004, 2005.
Okay.
But I was like, no, I want crypto, and I've held on to that crypto, not necessarily holding it in any particular esteem, but I've had it until I had my kids, and now they have it. He's a little
Yay.
rough for wear now, but they have a crypto stuffy already, which is really funny.
That's
He's been in the
excellent, man.
family for a minute. Yeah.
My buddies Art and Franco, along with making Super Pet comic books and Tiny Titans, they did a couple 90-second shorts for Cartoon Nation when they had their DC Nation block. And in between shows, they would also show these like interstitial short cartoons.
Hmm.
And there's this great short cartoon of Crypto and Streaky. And and it's great. Streaky's typical cat, doesn't want to be bothered, and Crypto's all hyper as a dog, like, hey, let's see how many people we can save. Let's have a contest. Go! And he goes off starting to save people. And there's a boat that's turned over, and Crypto saves Art Baltazar, our friend Jimmy, and me.
See,
So
it's fun to stick stuff like that in there. Like,
exactly, man. And I'm
if you
like,
got to draw a crowd, you might as well make part of the crowd, people that you like drawing, something fun. That's
exactly.
awesome.
Yeah, and it was great. So I screen capped it, and I'm like, and when the trailer came out and you saw Crypto saving Superman, I had the screen cap. I'm like, I know what it is to be saved by Crypto. This is fantastic. So
Yeah.
here, more comments from everybody. Let's see here. Ange says, "Oh, can you talk about the JLU variant cover you did with the Superman family? Fun to draw
Yeah.
all those characters."
Yeah. So they actually hired me to do two covers for issues 4 and 5, and this was before Action Comics came back to me, so I hadn't drawn Superman in a while. And they said to me like, "Well, Justice League Unlimited now, basically, outside of a very few characters, it's kind of open to whomever you want to draw. You can draw whatever you want." So I chose to do one that was the original 7 iconic thing, and I was like, "Well, I want to do the Super Family," and it gave me an excuse to also draw Crypto. So I have a number of characters all off in space behind him, and the Watch Tower behind him, because now ostensibly the Super Family, they're all Leaguers. So it was a blast. And Luis Guerrero colored it and cut like incredible. It's the cover for JLU. We ended up swapping around. I believe that one became JLU 4. And no, I had a blast getting to do that, and drawing Connor and Conan and Supergirl, Power Girl, and of course Sneaking and Crypto.
I got to look those up, man. That's great. And I'm with you on that. And I've been talking to Mark Waid about JLU and everything, and the opportunity that allows for interesting hero matchups. Because, like you said, pretty much everybody in the DC universe, everybody's in there and everything. I mean, I loved in one of the early issues, and we'll get to JSA because I'm a sucker for the Golden Age. So, all of a sudden, there's Dr. Occult, one of the original, Action 1 characters. That even Zatanna's father, Zatara. I mean, I love the plainclothes heroes, Slam Bradley, as much as I love a lot of those Golden Age heroes that are costume. So it's cool. And speaking of JSA, we may as well talk about the issue 8 that's coming out in a couple weeks. Great variant cover here, man.
Well, that's a variant cover for a different issue 8. So here's the fun thing. I did a variant for for Jeff Johns' JSA, and then I came back and happened to do issue 8 of the Lemire run. It just happens to be different issue 8s. It's weird. Super weird. Yeah, we have a Mike Cho cover for ours.
I love Mike. Another good friend of mine.
And it's kind of when they pitched it to me, I'm already a JSA fan, so when I was kind of coming back into comics, there you go, right there. When I was coming back into comics as a young teen, when I was my money that I was spending, my allowance money that I was spending going to the shop on my own, when I had an LCS for the first time, I was getting into the Johns and Rags Morales Hawkman. I'm a big Hawkman fan. He's my non-A-list character that I love, that I want to work on. So when they pitched me this, I was like, oh, I'm gonna draw Hawkman. I'm there with bells on. And then, but I also loved reading the James Robinson and then on to Jeff Johns and so many artists run on JSA at that time too. So I'm a big fan of these characters myself. And one that I was not expecting that I actually fell in love with drawing in the book was Wildcat. Like I've always liked his design, but like actually drawing him, I had a blast. He's actually one of my favorite panels I've ever drawn is one that's just him. But like I had so much fun doing. It's 1942 Berlin or 1945 Berlin, so it's a World War II like boots on the ground story, and it was a little cathartic punching Nazis in December on paper, but I had a lot of fun getting to touch on these characters. Like Dr. Fate is such a great visual in Hawkman, I love to death, and getting to there's cameos that I'm not going to spoil of other characters that aren't a part of the team that kind of show up to help. There was just a lot for me as a nerd, even if I'm not super well versed in some of them, to get to like, oh, Wotan, amazing, great. I'm not a Wotan fan, but the fact that Wotan has this long legacy behind him of, like you said, Dr. Colt being like tied to something so old, like I just appreciate that so much. As a history nerd in general, that getting to do all of these characters and Our Man and stuff was great. Jay Garrick, we got to do a lot, and it was really, really fun. And when I was giving my like, all right, guys, this was a really great hangout. Let me sign your yearbook. See you next year. Love you. Bye. Jeff was like, well, hold on. He's like, I have an idea to do more of these flashback stories set in different times. Would you want to come in and maybe do one set like in a different decade? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm going to go do X-Men because Gail and I had an agreement for me to come do a Gambit solo issue. And at that point, then I think I'd already gotten action. So I'm going to knock out action for 2 months. And then whenever that's done, yeah, I'll come back and do something else if you can. He's like, because I'll move it up for you and we'll make it work. But then it kind of shifted into something else that now I'm coming back and I'm doing Golden Age again, but I'm doing a whole arc. It's just there's a spin on it that I'm going to leave up to DC. There's a little touch on top that kind of puts the bow on everything that I'm going to leave to DC to announce. But yeah, getting to come back and play with these characters, and we're going to have like a more wide range of actually having like Alan Scott's in the book now, and getting to draw some of these Golden Age characters. And you mentioned like these ground level characters, even the ones in costumes, so many of them incorporate suits and regular clothing into their costumes because we weren't quite in like a legitimate like all spandex design era in the 40s because it was such a new concept. So like having someone like the Sandman, where he's got a suit as opposed to being boots and spandex, and then the Atom's a part of it, the original Atom, Al Pratt. I'm very very excited to be a part of this and kind of work with these characters a little bit again, and what we're doing for these 6 issues to kind of get to put my stamp on something like that is great. And Jeff's amazing, and our editor Andrew's been my champion at DC for a long time. So there's no way I wasn't going to say yes and come running.
I want to go back to the design on JSA 8 because it really looks like an all-star 1940s cover.
Yeah.
You did a great job of
Well,
capturing that spirit, and obviously that fits that story. So who were you looking at to come up with this design?
Well, this is Michael Cho.
Oh, I am so sorry, Gavin. I apologize because I don't want to.
But
DC gave me access to issue 8, so I've seen your interiors, but I respect them enough to not, do that. So I apologize for claiming this as yours. I'm sorry.
They specifically got him for this because and the way that Andrew told me was that Andrew's like, we want it to feel so much like this, and we tried to do something similar on the interiors where like the colors are much more rendered than colors would have been then. And I've got modern aesthetics things that I do with my hatching and stuff, but I'm a throwback artist in a lot of ways. So I kind of leaned into it as much as I could, and tried to do a good job of delineating 40s from the rest, without actually changing my style per se.
Understood.
But yeah. But that's a great cover. I'm excited about it. I think Michael Cho's awesome.
Yeah, no, he is great, and like I said, he captured that all-star spirit. But no, I love Wotan as well. And all I will say again, because of the period, and this is part of JSA history, I assume it was Roy Thomas that, because you always can say, well, Jesus, all these guys had great powers. How come they didn't, fight on the front lines of World War II?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we know that the Spear of Destiny and the magic that Hitler had access to kept the JSA from really being able to operate. And so that's why they stuck to, that was a great way of explaining a lot of those all-star stories and why they weren't boots on the ground and on the front lines and stuff.
And since you've looked at the issue, you've seen too that there's a number of characters that I haven't mentioned that are just long-standing DC characters. That was cool to be like, oh yeah, I'll draw that character for 2 panels. They're not really in the story at large, but amazing. Like, oh great, I didn't think I was going to draw this character. That's kind of incredible.
You're going to have to tell me off the air, because I'm like, I'm not sure. And I mean, not only JSA, but even when Roy was doing All-Star Squadron, and we got so many other 40s heroes in those, and especially he had the opportunity to include characters from the Quality era that was a different company in the 40s that DC acquired by the 70s, the Freedom Fighters, and of course the Fawcett heroes, Shazam and the Marvel family and Bullet Man and all those other Fawcett superheroes. They were all in All-Star Squadron. So yeah, I'm excited. I hope you have the opportunity of, without spoiling, some of those ideas.
I think that's all. I think all that stuff is great. Like I don't know. There's something about it that just speaks to me. As much as a lot of it is very dated, there's just there's something essential in their makeup. I think that I gravitate toward them so much.
I'm with you, man. No, and in fact, again, I like all those reprints hit me when I was your daughter's age, when I was 10 and 11 years old. So it was all just comics to me, and the design of these original costumes and stuff. It's like you can't beat it. I mean, I had those PVC, 3-inch
little figures.
Yeah, because I'm like, my God, it's the damn Justice Society. And the first time I ever saw Alan Scott Green Lantern, it was a reprint, and it was of the Dr. Fate Hourman Brave and Bold story where they fight Solomon Grundy, and all of a sudden Alan Scott shows up at the end, and they're like, "Hey, look, it's Green Lantern," and I'm like, "That's not Green Lantern. Who the fuck is that?" And it's like, I don't know who he is, but goddamn, man, that's a hell of a costume. So I'm in, So I'm a big Hourman. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Hourman's great. Hourman's such a weird design because physically the black part of the mask doesn't really make sense because it's not actually black. It is shadow. So whenever I draw it, I play with that as a concept. It's like it's shadow, but it's always just oddly placed there. And it somehow, if you just, it's similar when you make the movies. If you accept some of the goofier elements and just treat them with respect, that's just how it works. It works. It does. You don't have to go out of your way to make excuses for why certain things don't operate in the normal realm of physical reality. You know, like how they did Metamorpho so far. I'm really excited about. Like, God, he looks like Metamorpho. It's crazy that they
In the
really
movie,
just
yeah.
went for it. And
Yeah.
I'm hoping they don't. I'm hoping they don't act ashamed of it when the movie comes. And I think knowing James' work, he won't. I'm really hoping that they just like, hey man, this is Metamorpho. This is what he looks like. This is why, and they just move on, as opposed to having to come up with some big reason
I'm with
for
you.
like Spider-Man's organic web shooters. You know, like I love those Raimi movies, but like you could have just been like, oh yeah, he can shoot webs because he built this thing, and it would have been. I think we would have accepted it as fine. Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah, man. No, and no, you're great with your Marvel stuff. Absolutely. I'm excited to hear about you doing the Rogue issue or the Gambit issue rather of X-Men with Gale. That's terrific, man.
Yeah, I actually have the original art for that cover framed. I've kept two. I keep something for everything I do, but I've kept two of my covers that were characters that were so important to me as a kid. That I was like, I don't know if I'll get to do this again, so I'm going to keep them. So like, I kept my first Turtles cover, and I haven't gone back. I've talked to them about it, but it just never hasn't happened. And then Spider-Man. Like I grew up reading Amazing in the '90s, and then when I was a teenager, Ultimate came out, and he's a teenager again, and it was so huge to me. It was the one book that I bought every single month without fail for years and years and years. And then my favorite artist, Eminem, came in and replaced Bagley, and Bagley was the artist who got me wanting to do comics. So it was like a perfect book
that's
for
great.
me. And then they bring back Ultimate Spider-Man now that I'm in my 30s with kids, and he's in his 30s with kids. And they asked me if I wanted to do a cover, and I was like, oh yeah. Yeah, I've drawn Spidey before for them, but he wasn't in his actual costume, so it wasn't quite the same. So getting to do just go for this iconic hero shot thing, I'm so pleased to have gotten to do that, and I think it came out pretty good.
Hell yeah, man! No, it looks fantastic. Derek Donovan, another great artist, showing up. There you go. How are you,
Derek? Yeah, Derek's a local guy. He lives like maybe about 45 minutes away from me.
Well, I hope he gets a chance to watch the Superman movie with you guys and everything.
He's going to be at that con, so he doesn't have much of an excuse.
There you go, man. And Comic Pal say something nice to me in the chat, and that's very nice, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, that's excellent. Well, no, we mentioned, you did that. The first thing I think I was aware of your art was that David Peppo story, Going to the Chapel.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty neat crime story.
Yeah, that was my first published work. That was a lot of fun. Getting to do kind of spin on the heist story, but it's at a wedding. And it was a big, broad comedy with a humongous cast. I think it was essentially like 13 people. It was huge. So it really prepared me for all these team books that I'm now doing, coming out of the gates with that large of a cast. I had a blast with that book, working with David. It's funny because we're both now kind of, he's doing a lot of Dynamite stuff too, but he kind of got to Marvel right around the same time I got to DC, within maybe a few months. So it's been kind of fun to have like new books on the shelves at the same time, for different companies having kind of come up together.
Sure. No, that's great. He and Erica Schultz, when COVID was happening, our friend of ours put together some. We did online conventions because we felt bad that everybody was sitting at home. We're like, all right, well, I pulled out my Rolodex and got a bunch of people and that I knew, but another guy really helped us get a bunch of people, and David and Erica Schultz and stuff. And he was giving panels individually to David and Erica, and I'm like, people don't know them, and they're like, and the guy said, well, in 3 years they're going to be doing a lot of DC and Marvel work. He was right.
Yeah,
he was right. That's
I love Erica. Erica's my birthday buddy, actually.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
she was just on a couple of weeks ago because she's killing it over at Marvel right now.
Yeah,
and David, I don't know, man. I Again, I'm older than you guys, so hey, we're doing Captain Planet, and I'm like, all right, I guess,
But Space Ghost,
dude, come
right?
on, yeah. I used to get up at 7 in the morning to watch Space Ghost. I know exactly what that's like, man. So yeah, all those '60s Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
I got to them, I think, on the second or third bite of the apple when they were rerunning them.
Yeah.
Herculoids and Galaxy Trio, all those adventure Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I love
Well, I
that
mean,
stuff.
I started watching Cartoon Network. So when Cartoon Network started, I was 8 or 9. So when it was
Perfect.
all Hanna-Barbera reruns, I mean, I was
Yeah.
watching it like crazy. And I've got one of my Alex Toth Genius books is on a shelf right here. I've got Bravo for Adventure, the artist edition up there. I've got the Dell collection of his Zorro stuff. I'm a huge Toth fan.
Me too.
So, his hands all over those designs. He's just a genius.
Have you watched Space Angel, the cartoon?
I haven't, no.
That's something he designed as well. And you can find him on YouTube very easily. And they're short little 5-minute serialized kind of stories and stuff. But it's great. It's a lot of fun.
Cool.
And yeah, and it's that clutch cargo animation where it's a live mouth
Oh,
surrounding an
okay.
animated face.
Interesting.
Yeah, like what Conan used to do, when he would
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
Clinton and Arnold Schwarzenegger and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Cool. All right.
That was the
Yeah.
inspiration for Conan's gag about all that
Check
stuff. So
it
yeah,
out.
it's a lot of fun. They're interesting to watch. And great designs, great astronaut and spaceship designs on Space Angel. It's a cool it's a cool cartoon. But no, you're right. I was going to ask, do you have Me TV Tunes, that
I
channel?
I don't.
It's a digital channel,
Okay.
and it's not on my cable system. I'm about to cut the cord finally. I used to keep the cord for boxing purposes, and everybody's getting out of the boxing business other than the streamers. So there's no point in me hanging on to it.
Right.
But yeah, it's a lot like Cartoon Network was at the beginning, where they're showing a
Cool.
lot of the 50s and 60s Hanna-Barbera stuff, Top Cat, and obviously the Flintstones and the Jetsons and all that stuff, but even the adventure stuff too. So
Cool.
yeah, no, I'm gonna get back to that. Absolutely, it's no, that stuff is fun. So tell me about the Marvel stuff, man. Like I said, tell me about doing Gambit now, and I'm glad that Marquez obviously to kind of stay on schedule and everything. You had to come in and help her out on this issue.
Yeah, well, so what they're doing is they're shipping twice a month. So they're on some ridiculously insane schedule. So David was doing the first 6 and then popping off. They were gonna have a few other people come in. He came back for I think issue 13. I did 12.
Okay.
But what happened? So Gail reached out to me. Ironically, I was drawing Birds of Prey at the time, which she did not know. And she reached out to me because she had spoken to a mutual friend of ours who's a black woman from New Orleans who's my age about like trying to get the New Orleans of it all right, especially the Gambit stuff. And this friend was like, "Oh, well, if you want help with like the Gambit stuff, talk to this guy." Because I'm Cajun, but I'm Cajun and I grew up in the city, and that's a little bit less common because so many Cajuns are out west by like an hour or two more.
Okay.
My family's from out that way, but like they moved over. They moved like in the New Orleans area 80 years ago. So for like 3 generations now, we've been out here. So it was kind of a huge thing for me because I was a kid, obviously, for Gambit. Gambit was introduced a year after I was born.
Wow.
So I was a kid for all of the cartoon and everything. And he was the first representation I ever had or remember having of like a Cajun person or someone from Louisiana as a
Yeah.
main character who's cool.
Yeah.
Um, and even as a kid, I could tell that like, well, it doesn't quite sound right. And so this whole time, like, saying like I want to get my hands on them and fix them, and there are things that obviously you can't change. The accent's going to be what it is. It's anachronistic. It doesn't quite make sense. Someone his age, especially now in modern comics, my age, would not sound
Certainly.
like that. If they're especially if they're from the city. If they're from the city, they're going to sound more like me. Mine's watered down, but I have what you would call like a Yad accent. Where it's more just kind of like a New Yorkie by way of the South kind of thing. It has like a city angle to it. that a lot of other southern places don't. And the idea behind it is that New Orleans, being a major port, got a lot of the same immigrant class that New York got. So I'm part Sicilian too, so we got a lot of
Oh,
Italians,
wow.
a lot of Irish, a lot of Germans, a large Jewish population mixed with the French, and then of course huge Black population. So all
Sure.
that mixes together. But my great grandma, my mama Jeremy, she sounded a good bit like that. And then anybody who's from Lafourche Parish, which is about an hour away, they might not sound like that if they're my age, but they sound closer to it than I do. So it's like I knew I couldn't fix the accent, but I could at least fix the slang and fix the Spanglish aspects of it that are always kind of hokey, like changing random words to French words. That's not how it works. You can't just pick and choose. So she asked me for some notes, and I sent her a 9-page PDF called Cajun Nonsense. And it was just like a little bit of geography, a little bit of history, some of my family stuff, and then kind of working through language things about like, not about teaching Cajun French, because I don't know Cajun French, because it was essentially beat out of an entire generation not to pass it on.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like my great grandmother, she would speak French in front of us when she didn't want us to know what she was saying, talking to her cousins and her sisters. My grandmother, I believe, can understand it but can't speak it, and then my mom and I down, we can't. And part of it is because they made it in like, I think it was in like the 1930s. School, courts, anything official to do with the state, you have to be in English. And it wasn't like, I'm sure there was some corporal punishment involved at some point too, but even on like the positive end, it was a shamed thing. It was, no, you need to speak English. You're not doing it right.
Sure.
So there became this thing where it almost died because it just didn't get passed on. So there are organizations in the state trying to save it and keep it alive, but it's different enough from French that you can't just take French and be fine. You can take French, learn French, and then listen to someone Cajun and probably be okay. But there's enough differences there that you can't necessarily know that you speak. You can't learn standard French and then be like, oh no, but I know Cajun, I'm fine. I mean, especially because so many of our words are loan words that are native words. Like in that comic, she asked me for the villain to have kind of a nickname for Gambit because he meets him when he's a little kid, and I told her that in Cajun the word for raccoon is shawi, and it's kind of like, so I thought of like a pet name for him to be a raccoon. He's a thief, would be shawi. So she does that in that book. But anybody who knows standard French would not be able to read that and have a clue what it meant. But so I knew I couldn't fix everything, but I knew that I could kind of come in and maybe course correct him a little bit and hopefully make some things a little bit more official, get him not like, the biggest thing that always drove me crazy was seeing Cherie written in the comics.
Sure.
Or even in the show have him say share. It's not pronounced that way at all. It's Sha. It's a very short, like it's cut off. And it's short for Cherie. But no one in this state says Cherie and hasn't for Lord only knows 400 years.
Sure, I get it. Yeah.
So that was always a pet peeve of mine because it's not right. It's just not right. So fixing that was huge, and it's funny because I officially got that issue like 4 days before New York last year, and I went to New York and I was talking to my buddy Chris Condon, and he's like, "Oh, I'm about to introduce Ultimate Gambit. Would you send me those notes?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And then coincidentally, issue 3 of his Ultimate Wolverine book, which introduces Gambit, came out the same day as my Gambit issue. So I had the 2 versions of Gambit that I helped foster into this world on shelves at the same time. It was kind of like a full circle, like, oh yes, moment. And if you've ever read the issue, there's a page at the end of issue 12 that was my one thing that I told Gail, like my one caveat I want to do, that I wanted to have a crawfish boil because I wanted to have Gambit teach them how to peel crawfish step by step. And so now officially in the Marvel universe, there is a tutorial on how to peel crawfish. And I think that's kind of cool. And it's the basic way, like, it's not like the expert way, but he's not teaching experts, he's teaching kids. And there's a rite of passage as a Cajun kid or a Louisiana kid, that you grow up with your parents peeling your crawfish and feeding you. And then once you get old enough, you start peeling your own. because it's work. It takes a little
I'm
while, and it's
aware.
not much
Yes.
meat. So you're like, little boom, and then like by the time you're done with the next getting the meat out, they're already ready for this. So you're like, all right, here's another one, and then you're not eating yourself, trying to feel for them. So it becomes a thing that like once you're old enough, you're on your own, man. You got to learn this. Come on.
I worked at a rock station for 10 years, WXRT here in Chicago, and we played a lot of roots music. And I is Dr. John New Orleans, the old rocker? Okay, I thought
Sure
so.
is.
We had an amazing night where we did fireworks. It might have been 4th of July, I don't remember, but what I do remember is we used to have a Cajun restaurant, Green Dolphin Street, and Dr. John did a private concert for us. And I'm like, my God, I mean, I've been in the right place, but it must have been the wrong time. I mean, I
Yeah,
grew up
that
on that
dude.
music. So
That
it was
dude's a
so great. And
character.
he's singing Iko Iko, and he's singing his hits and everything. And it's just, it was so beautiful. But I have to tell you, the great blues guitarist who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the great Buddy Guy, still with us, he knows how to make etouffee and crawfish, and was just,
Nice.
he would, whenever he'd come to visit the radio station and play for us in studio, he would always cook. He's like, hey, everybody, I got crawfish. Everybody enjoy it. And it was, oh my God, it was amazing. So I have peeled crawfish, and I love Cajun food, man. No, I mean, I'm a Greek guy, but I so hear you about, first of all, your family speaking, Cajun or French to when the little kids aren't supposed to know what you're talking about. Happened with my family as well. But yeah,
We would just be
that's
hanging
great,
out
and
on
it's
the
great that you
carpet.
brought that authenticity back to Gambit. That's wonderful, man.
We would just be like hanging on the carpet, and she'd be on the phone, and she would be speaking in English for a hot minute, and then all of a sudden you would hear it switch over, and you'd be like, and you just knew that they were talking some spicy stuff. They didn't want the little babes to hear. But that's so funny. Yeah, I actually one of our shows in New Orleans that we have is Fan Expo in January, and I usually make gumbo, and I bring gumbo to some people who are in town.
That's
Because
great.
it's just a thing of like, it's peasant food. So there's an element of it of, yes, you can eat amazing at restaurants, but with true peasant food, same thing with Italian food, you can eat just as good in someone's kitchen at home.
Yes.
So it's like, well, I make a pretty good gumbo. I've had local friends suggest that I could make money off of it. Like, obviously it's not like amazing, but it's good. So like I've fed people at these shows frequently, and a lot of my peers are like, holy shit, like you can do this and draw too. It's like, well, yeah, man, but like I grew up doing that. The drawing is the one that like I had to put the time in. That came naturally.
You got to do an illustrated cookbook, man.
I have floated the idea of an official Remy LeBeau cookbook with locally sourced recipes and drawn finished product illustrations instead of photos. I would be all for it.
All right, Gabriel, I hope you're watching. Dave Gabriel, let's make this happen. I would love to see Cajun cookbook. I think that's a no. Whenever he finally makes it in the movies. So yeah, keep that in the back pocket, man, because it's coming. So
well, and it's funny too, because like you might know. Do you know who Louis Prima was?
Of course, I love Louis Prima. Go ahead.
Louis Prima's in New Orleans. He's a New Orleans guy. A lot of people don't realize that like there's a huge Italian and Sicilian culture down here too. In fact, we have a sandwich called the muffalata that you can only get. It's a New Orleans. We are one of the few places in the country that have a locally specific, distinct dish of Italian culture. And you would never, people who don't know, who aren't from here, would never have assumed that Louisiana has a special Italian dish, but we do. And it was a thing of they're blue collar workers, so they needed to have a meal that wouldn't spoil. So they used, like tapenade and olive oil, and it's beets. And if you ever try to order one and you see it on the menu and it says half or whole, trust me, just order half. If you're going to eat it by yourself, don't order whole. Don't be a hero. It's the size of a plate and it's tall. Like the bread's like this with meat in the middle. Don't do it. I actually had my muffalata the other day at Mother's Day. So good. But yeah, so we have like this huge culture for that too. So with Gail, we didn't do a whole lot of it, but I explained to her that there's a little bit of that too, and that if mob culture, Chicago and New York get credit, but New Orleans was there very early.
I'm aware.
With Costello, Marcello. So we I tried to explain that to her too, to give it like, she wants to do a gang story. And I was like, well, that's here. At least it was for a long time. So we kind of played in those elements of like there's a little bit of that Italian mob vibe, but also the Southern crime of it all, which is a huge thing too. And then little old Gambit, kind of little old Remy stuck in the middle. Shall we?
That's great. Louis Prima, truly, I swear, I'm so glad you
That
mentioned
voice,
him.
man.
My father's favorite artist. And he, again, we're Greek, but my dad grew up in a predominantly Italian neighborhood. And for him, and people don't understand, because when they hear rock and roll, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, stuff like that, and it's like, and my dad would always be, Louis Prima was considered rock and roll when he was doing his stuff too. And he's kind of a cross between more jazzy kind of stuff, him and Keely Smith, his female singer and stuff. But no, man, that guy was just a good time. And he reminded me of so many of my dad's friends. But Muffalatos and New Orleans po' boys, my grandmother had like a bodega kind of mom and pop grocery store, and she'd sell poor boys, but they were really Italian subs, and they were different than Cajun po' boys and everything.
When I was in Memphis for college, and I would go to like the 7-Eleven, and they would have poor boys, and it would just be like a roast beef sub.
Sure.
I'm like, okay, it's just a sub. It's not quite the same. It's fair. But it's funny because they have the same cultural, historical reason behind them. Like the po' boy comes from a streetcar strike, and people wanted to feed the in solidarity feed the workers, so they were feeding the poor boys.
Yep.
So they were feeding them po' boys, and the sandwich stuck. And it's kind of the same thing of like it's blue collar, peasant food, but it's rich, it's delicious, it's savory, and I mean like it's hearty and carb heavy.
You're right.
So
that's awesome.
Tie that with this job, and that's what we talked about earlier about like a little bit of fluctuation in the weight happens when you're sitting down eating all that bread and drawing all these pictures.
I got to find a reason to come down there, man, and enjoy your gumbo. That sounds amazing.
Oh, I would say GalaxyCon. That's going to be in July. Gumbo has a seasonal thing where it's like once it starts to that first nip in the air of it being cold, everybody's like gumbo
time. I'm hip.
Yep.
That's how I am with chili and everything. So no, I get it.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Here, a couple comments, and I love these questions that are coming up. Here, hold on. Let me see. Here we go. Ange C. Would love to hear Gavin talk about his variant cover for Jay Garrick The Flash. Was that your idea? Tough to pull off? He thought it was brilliant. Well, I don't have it up, but tell me what you did.
So when they were doing they did a Flash series where it was Judy Garrick and Jay. It was Jay Garrick The Flash.
Yep.
And they tapped me to do a variant cover for issue 3, and I wanted to do Flash is tricky for me, right? Because when you think about these characters, think about like the iconic things that they do to show in this image. Well, Flash runs, and it's how many times can you do that differently than other people? And recently, to that point, at that time, someone I can't remember who it was now did this cover of Flash that was in the side mirror of a car, and I was like, "Fuck." Well, that's okay. Damn it. Genius. So I was like, well, what if I did like a zoetrope of the two of them running in opposite directions, and I just like did like a really designy cover, which is dangerous because it's not a big splashy image. But I pitched it to them, and it's the one that I wanted them to go with, and Andrew was on board with it. So I did like a little choppy animated run cycle for the two of them, and they kind of stagger across the cover. But the fun thing is that I put them together and I made little gifs of them. They do in fact run. It's purposely a choppy cycle to be more like the zoetropes where they're not like fluidly animating, but you spin it and all of a sudden that horse is running and it's like coming to life. So yeah, that was a fun cover for me to do, and it was tough to pull off in the sense that I had to ink all of those damn figures over and over and over again because there was probably I'd guess maybe 25 of Jay and 25 of Judy, and of those, it's cycling 3 or 4 of the same images multiple times, with multiple poses that are just a little flipped. Yeah, and they were little.
It's so great that John's had that idea of giving a lot of these Golden Age characters sidekicks that didn't have them, and it's so funny. He totally teased the hell out of me when he was doing that Stargirl miniseries where a lot of them were initially introduced, and they even had the fake, DC Who's Who entries for all the sidekicks, and it was great. And he's just like, John, you don't remember that in Flash Comics 8, that's where Judy, and I'm like, no. He's like, oh, John, I used to think you knew your golden age, man. And I'm like, maybe I'm fucked up. Maybe I didn't know that. Wait a minute, what the hell, man?
I think introducing fake golden age stuff is kind of like the coolest shit ever. Like the Century, how the Centuries was introduced. I think Johnny Sorrow for being a modern character is like incredible.
Yes.
And in particular, drawing him in JSA 8, like it's so fun drawing a mask with no head in a suit. It's just like, it's such a cool look, man. No, I'm a big fan of that whole concept of kind of coming back into that era and introducing new things, but trying to introduce them in that vibe, in that tone is really cool.
I don't know if you're going to use them, but and I loved it and now I'm blanking. Whoever did the Alan Scott miniseries wrote it, but the Red Lantern that they introduced there, and especially, honestly, man, and I will so confess this. At first, when James Robinson in that Earth 2 book was like, Alan Scott, hey, Alan Scott's gay. And I'm like, I'm not against, and really, I'm saying this to everybody, and I'm kind of ashamed of myself, that I'm like, I'm cool with there being gay heroes, of course. I'm like, but Alan Scott's been around since 1940. And then when James Tynion, for the 80th anniversary of Green Lantern, redid the original Alan Scott origin, and they suddenly imprinted this, fact that he was a homosexual and stuff. It's like, well, that's interesting. Wait a minute, because not only do you have to guard his Green Lantern identity, but he had to be a closeted gay man in a very difficult time. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
Right.
I'm all
it's a
for
lot
that.
of story avenue all of a sudden that you didn't have. Yeah.
Yeah, and also even introducing the Red Lantern as a romantic, character that duped Alan. And it's like, holy shit, that's amazing. So I'm like, all right, I am so on board. And really now Alan is just much more of a complicated character because I'm like, well, what about Jenny and Todd, his kids, Obsidian and Jade and everything. I'm like, how do you, and it's like, well, there are gay people that, tried both lifestyles. And I'm like,
it's such a significant reality that you don't see portrayed as often, but is real. So I agree, like 100% that like it adds a new dimension to them. And it's a thing that it's a realistic character that you can explore that has representation for other people that they don't necessarily get to see. That is true. And I see the comment pals are saying it was Tim Sheridan wrote that run of the Green Lantern. The painted covers those painted covers were like gorgeous. The Art Nouveau and like the Art Deco stuff on it. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah. No, Tim, that was a beautiful series. And really, Tim did a hell of a job and the art was great. And yeah, I love the idea of the Red Lantern and how it's a very, again, as we were saying, new characters that you could put in the Golden and Silver Age. And all of a sudden it's like, well, now that hero's got a much more complicated story because of these new heroes. Here, Comic Pros also say, do you code switch at all? Meaning, when you're more comfortable around your people, does your accent come out a bit more?
I think to a degree, everyone probably does, right? Especially if you have like a distinct ethnic background. Because there's the amount of like my mom having her phone voice versus when she's like yelling at us. And like I did a big family get together for Mother's Day, and we were laughing because my uncle, whenever my mom and I would like talk, like my daughter walked away whenever I told her we had to take another photo together. She like happened to walk off in the interim, and I was like, "Where's Harper?" Harper, and my uncle was like, "Hey, Harper, get over here, hey!" And he would go into like the, "Hey, New York, hey, what's up?" Because there's so much of that in the accent that for him, he went like crazy, ridiculous, cartoony with it. Because my mom and I, especially, when you end up around those people, certainly, and my wife's thing is that we're just loud. And I would say that I'm not as loud normally, but also Mike Norton would disagree and swear up and down that I'm like the loudest person in the world. So
well, Mike's monosyllabic. I mean, my God. So anything to him is loud. So right. I understand. But I'm like that with the Greeks, man. The Greeks and we're all loud too. And I feel so bad because the little kids just hold their ears like, it's so loud, mommy. And it's like, sorry, kid, that's your family. What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Get used to it. It only gets louder.
There's definitely a certain amount of it, especially like at shows. Like if a family's coming around with kids, I might be a little bit more chill. But then like, if someone younger who's from a city or whatever comes hang out, or especially if they're from around this way. I don't have to necessarily be comfortable with them on a personal level, but there just becomes like this added comfort of like, oh, we kind of get each other, you
Yeah.
know? And yeah, it comes out a little bit.
It's like that with the Greeks. It's like that with my Italian friends. Believe me, I get it. Absolutely.
The
Hey,
the
Joe
funniest
Mulvey joining us too.
the funniest thing about that though, I'll say real quick, is
Yeah.
there were these moments of me putting in things in the notes for Gail of like, oh, Gambit does that because Cages do that. And my wife was like, babe, you do that. You just don't realize it. And I was like, no, I don't. And she's like, yeah, you do. And I was like, okay, fair enough. So I'm sure it's there anyway. But yeah, I
Yeah.
know old Joe Mulvey. I know
Well, real
Joe.
fast, before we get to Joe's comment, what nationality is your wife?
My wife is just good old Anglo-Southern Mississippi. Her family's from, we're 20 minutes outside Mississippi. So her
Okay.
family was straddling the line between Mississippi and Louisiana for generations. But she's just like that Northern English and like maybe a little bit of Nordic mixed in, but and Irish, just very, 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 very white people, as opposed to the spicy whites,
I'm hip.
as my friends call us. Between the Cajun and the Sicilian, I kind of got the best of both worlds in that front. But yeah, I know this. Speaking of Irish, I know this man right here, Joe Mulvey.
There you go. Huge fan of Gavin's work. Curious if he ever wants to write and draw his own book. Sorry to hear about his Saints quarterback retiring. Aaron Rodgers would have looked phenomenal in the black and gold. That's hilarious.
So I'm going to address the second half first. We are in a fantasy league together, as well as that I'm the commissioner of, as well as we are in just a comic book sports chat. I'm not as active as I once was. I used to be in there all the damn too much, but there's like a bunch of guys: Ramon Villalobos, Joe, Matt Wilson, Tony Gregory, a whole bunch of people. Speaking of Greeks, and there's a lot of shit talking.
Sure.
And I'm the only Saints fan. And I don't know if you follow football,
well,
but
a little. But go on.
We had Derek Carr, who was okay. And we went through this recent draft, and we drafted a new guy, but a lot of people think we reached and drafted him high, and we skipped over a person that everybody else thinks should have been drafted sooner. And then, I don't know, 2 weeks later, Derek Carr announces his retirement. So now it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, now we're just gonna fully ride with this young guy and see what happens. So he's giving me grief about Derek Carr. He's not my Saints quarterback. He's a Saints quarterback. And of course, everybody's laughing because Aaron Rodgers hasn't decided where he's going to go yet. But he's also looked horrible the last 2 seasons that he's been with different teams. Saying Carr was okay perfectly calculates his career. Yeah, he did some stuff. He had talent, but I mean, that doesn't. Yeah, what you going to do? Following Drew Brees, it's not the same.
I get it. Believe me, the Bears. I mean, we'll see what happens with Caleb, but we're hoping. And it's funny because as a Saints fan, I should tell you, in the '90s when Ditka left the Bears and went to New Orleans, we took that old Johnny Rogers song, "The Battle of New Orleans," and in 1814 we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi, and I made it into a Ditka song. And the coach of New Orleans. So yeah, I wish I could remember some lyrics for you, but Matt Fraction said he goes, I remember that, and I'm like, oh, that's great, Matt. I wrote something he goes, that was funny. I'm like, hey, I wrote something that you like. That's amazing.
Yeah, because he's a Cubs guy, right?
Ditka?
No, Fraction.
Oh yeah. Fraction he's a massive baseball guy and a massive Cub guy. You're absolutely right. Yes.
Yeah. It's funny too. In that same group and in that same fantasy league is Tom Riley, who's also a Bears guy.
Okay.
So we have our fun with like, yes, I'm in quarterback turmoil right now, but like, I'm not the Bears.
Listen. I gave Caleb. It's like it's his rookie year. They're all going to pound him. He didn't have the line to protect him. It's like he'll learn. He'll be fine. So we'll see this year. We'll see. And Bears had a good draft. We'll see.
But what Joe doesn't understand or can't relate to, because he's up there in New York, is that I also have like LSU to fall back on. and we produced Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels back to back, Heisman winners 2 years apart, and they're tearing it up in the NFL. So yeah, Mulvey, Rogers' Darkness Retreat during Mardi Gras would be an all-time. Yeah, it'd be fantastic. Great. Yeah, that's all we need is ayahuasca Rogers. As far as writing and drawing my own book, I there's a story, a Louisiana crime story, Southern crime story that I would like to do, but that I've actually been talking with Ron Mars about kind of co-developing it together and co-writing it, so I can kind of get my feet wet in the writing side of
Great
things.
idea.
I've contributed ideas to things before, but the idea of sitting down and writing, I'm just a little too gun shy of it. I think I don't have like the confidence that maybe we can kind of work our way through that together whenever my schedule permits. It's just unfortunately my schedule. Well, fortunately my schedule's
hey man,
pretty busy.
You're making your name at DC and Marvel, and when you're ready, your fans will follow you, man. I mean, and that's the truth. And also they will go back and look at the old stuff that you did with Pepos and Shelby and these guys and everything. So no, I think that's good. By the way, if you don't, I'm sure you already know, and I don't know if he's part of your sports group chat, but Mars is a big sports fan. Frank Thierry is a big sports fan. So, and it's funny because I'm really glad you found your comic creator sports guys. Because like I said, I worked in sports radio for 16 years. From the 90s to the mid 2000s and the early, pre 2010. And yeah, so like it's funny, the handful of comic book people that know that about me and want to talk. And my sport was boxing. My big sport was boxing. So,
well, I did sports radio as well at my college station when I was at Southeastern Louisiana University.
That's fantastic, man. Talk to me.
I did the morning news breakdown. I had to write and record the minute every morning. I had to do it twice. And I had a weekly talk show for an hour.
Cool.
And then I just had my normal radio spot. I had the 12 to 3 spot every day.
Did you do music?
Were you a
DJ?
Yeah, I loved working radio. It was so much fun. I mean, especially at a college, it wasn't paying anything, but like I had so much fun.
Dude, I am so honestly, I loved on the Venture Brothers. One of the bad guys was trying to impress like Dr. Orpheus's daughter. Did I ever tell you about when I was a college DJ? And dude, in the 80s, that was cool. And I'm from the 80s, so that was cool. But yeah, no, that I again, 30 years in Chicago radio and another 5 downstate in Bloomington, Illinois. So no, I love radio. It's why I do my podcast. And I only started doing video regularly like during COVID. And for the first 15 years, it was all audio. I love it. I mean, no, there's just something intimate about putting those headphones on and hearing the music and hearing a voice. And to this day, no, I mean, and not just nerd podcasts. I love good storytelling podcasting and great interviewing. I was listening to Ezra Klein of the New York Times, his podcast this afternoon. And I mean, no, any sort of subject that interests me, I'm there. And again, it's so much better than radio.
My thing is like video essays on YouTube about some of them are about the Tudors, some of them are about comic book stuff, some of them are about musicians, some of them are about wrestling. There's any number of avenues that I find them fascinating, and I listen to that a lot while I work.
I get it.
And like I mentioned previously, Word Balloon, I was it was 2005. I had my little video iPod, and I had to go on to the website and download the link onto iTunes and download the podcast onto the actual whatever episode you wanted. You had to download it ahead of time to make sure you had it. And I remember I was going to do they do these portfolio reviews where several colleges will go into an area, like and have an event where you can go and get portfolio reviewed by different admissions people from different colleges to kind of like test the waters for you being able to get into an art school, because art schools, you have to be accepted. You can't just have the GPA, write the check, and then the ACT score and get in. You have to be accepted. And I knew that I was going to Baton Rouge to do my first one as a junior. I think it was my junior year. And that's an hour away. So I was like, That's Neil Adams podcast episode. Looks like it's about an hour. So I remember listening to it in the car on the way there, and like having Neil talk about Bigfoot, Littlefoot cartooning, and talking about this,
Wow.
Working with Julie Schwartz and all this stuff. Like all that background information is so fascinating to me. So Word Balloon, like I was listening a long time ago, and then man, like I went to college. I'd take a couple years off, and then I went back to school, and that was around the time that Ben just started doing the Venice tapes with you. And y'all would have so many conversations that like I remember waiting between classes, listening to it all the time on my at that point it was my phone.
Sure.
And man, they're just like, no, Word Balloon and I go back a good bit. I don't, I there's so much now competing for attention all the time.
Oh yeah.
Always, but like Word Balloon's got a special place in my heart as being like one of those touchstones for me culturally, significantly for my interest as a fan, and also giving me a peek behind the curtain for the pro side of it. And now that I'm on that other side of it, it's really fun to get to come back and do this.
Gavin, you're going to make me cry. So honestly, that means truly, it means a lot. It really does, man. And honestly, it is the greatest compliment that I get from comic pros that tell me that Word Balloon was part of their journey in getting to where they are. And hey, man, you're killing it, man. So I'm happy to have you on, and we'll certainly have more conversations. Ange says he had an 80s alternative show in college on the radio show. Yeah, alternative rock, man. That's what I was playing. It didn't get him much playback back then. Well, I'm sorry, man. Again, we were among the cool kids breaking new bands and stuff, back in the 80s. So yeah.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun. We were like a AAA, so it would be
sure.
So it would be, we would be playing Grizzly Bear, and I could go in and put in like Frightened Rabbit, which is one of my favorite Irish bands or Scottish bands, and like playing all these things that you're not necessarily going to hear on the top 40 station at all. And that was just so much fun because they would also give you leeway. They would build the playlist digitally, but then you could kind of come in, and if you wanted to sub things in or out, you were welcome to. And I would go for it. And then like, one of my favorite things was whenever we had things to give away, they would be like, I don't know, you handle it, whatever you want to do. So I would go for trivia all the time. And it would be like, well, if you're this caller at this point, and you hit this exact, like, if you give me this information that's related to this band, you'll get tickets to Jazz Fest, and I had so much fun.
That
was really
excellent.
Fun.
Stranger Things played like Peter Gabriel in one of their earlier season episodes, and some douche on Facebook is like, oh, they weren't playing that in, and I forget what town Stranger Things happens in. And it's like, yeah, that wasn't hitting the farm communities. I'm like, well, I was in the shadow of the Peoria, Illinois market at my college station. We were playing Peter Gabriel well before So and Sledgehammer and all those songs. I'm like, I don't know how to break it to you, pal. But,
right.
Don't worry, man. The red zones and stuff, we made sure that the alternative rock was hitting down there. So just relax.
Well, right. College stations are always at least a little hip because it's for the younger people.
You got it.
It's for the youngest aspect of adult culture in that area, which is going to be your 17s to 20s. So yeah, they're not interested in listening to, at that point, who would it even have been at that point? Who would be passe? Sinatra.
Journey. Well, Sinatra.
They wouldn't be interested in listening to all of the 70s or prog rock as much. Then they would be more interested in that stuff. Since all of a sudden we're
Well, and also like even bands and artists that were still putting stuff out in the 80s, that was like their worst decade. Like literally a good friend and I were talking about Aretha Franklin and Freeway of Love and Who's Zooming Who. And I'm like, she sang those songs while she was laying in a hammock. I'm like, she was so like pitching underhand, euphemistically. And the only guy that I could think of that was still making interesting music in the 80s, because he's always made interesting music, was Bob Dylan. But everybody else, man, it's like even Clapton, and it's in the way that you use it and stuff. It's like, come on, man, that stuff can't hold a candle to what he was doing in the 60s and 70s. So yeah, no, it's true. And also I imagine it was the case at your station as well. I had a high school radio station, and we were in the shadow of Northwestern University here in Chicago. And they told the high school, like, hey, you want better record service? Play these cutting edge bands that nobody else is playing. So we were on the ground floor of REM, got all the Athens, Georgia bands of the early 80s and stuff. Let's Active and some of the other bands that were coming out and everything. It's like, no, this is great music. The DBs, Spy in the House of Love. Don't get me started. Too late. Too late. So yeah, we're way off the reservation now. You're part
That's
of the,
fine. Well, but we are in the 80s, so I'll say we can segue to this then. Today, the Kickstarter for my new project launched.
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, I'm so glad you're going to bring this up, Kevin. I apologize. Please.
This past year, I on the side of all of my between all my big two work, I drew a horror slasher / giallo comic written by Alejandro Arbona. We're putting out through Goat's Flying Press. And the Kickstarter for it launched today, and within an hour and a few minutes, we'd already hit our goal.
Wow! Great.
So we did a goal to cover books already drawn, books paid for. So all we wanted to do was at least let's just pay for printing and shipping and all that's taken care of. We've already hit it. So the book's coming no matter what.
Beautiful, man.
Now we're just trying to hit these stretch goals to make it a hardcover book, to make it something nicer, to maybe add a few pages to it, to do some fun stuff. So I think last I checked, we were at like 150% of our goal. So hopefully we can keep churning because it's a really fun book. It's fun for me to get to step out and do a horror thing. I'm not a huge gore fan, but there's aspects of horror that I really, really love. And my wife's a fan of gore. So when this pitch came in, I was like, "Ooh, I think I kind of like." Alejandro sent me a few pitches, and I was like, "I think I kind of like this one." But like, if he's willing to let me do the kills in my way, I think he'll like. I'd love to do it. And she like read. She was like, "You need to do this one." Oh my god, yes. And the simple pitch of it is this. It starts off like your regular summer camps slaughter, where we're introduced to these kids getting dropped off by these parents, all this stuff. It's idyllic, it's perfect. And the parents are like, all right, cool, we got rid of the kids. We're going to go tear it up and have like the best kidless, drug fueled sex parade summer of our lives. That we have no responsibilities, even though we're in our 40s. And they go across the lake to their mansions, and the killer follows them instead of the camp kids. So you have your standard slasher summer camp, and those kids are actually having the time of their lives, having an idyllic summer camp experience. Meanwhile, the adults are the ones being punished for their transgressions. And it's very, very fun.
Hilarious.
I got to do some things that I haven't gotten to quite draw before. And I try to treat each book differently. Like when I'm drawing Superman, I'm not going to draw Superman in yellow with the same way. I do think I have a characteristic to my art that you can, if you know my stuff well enough, you can always see me in it. But like I drew this book differently a bit in comparison to my big two stuff, especially my more current stuff. So I'm hoping people really dig it. Early word on it was great. I mean, like Alejandro's really good friends with Greg Rucka, and he's his main editor on his Critter on stuff. So he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, I was just at a party at Greg Rucka's house," and I was like, "Okay, show off." Whatever, Greg Rucka. And he's like, and I was talking to Jeff Parker and Steve Lieber, and I was like, "Oh, well, I know those guys; they're great." And they're like, they loved what I showed them. And then those
that's
two guys,
wonderful.
Bless their hearts, individually messaged me afterward to tell me how much they liked what they saw. And I was like, "You guys rule." So the early word is very good. We've got a preview up on the campaign. It's already funded, so all you're doing is adding to a guaranteed campaign. Chris O'Halloran did the colors, and Hassan Esmanalao did the letters, and he's like creative and he approaches lettering like it's an art as opposed to like it's a technical job. So he's fantastic. I think the team overall is great, and I'm really excited about it, and I'm hoping people dig it. And we've got talks about maybe if things do well, hopefully we can come back and do something else in the same vein, because it is fun to get to the one for me, one for them thing, but more like, oh, well, let me play in the toy box with the toys, and then let me do something that's out of the field and thematically, genre wise over here. So like I'll do my horror stuff, the horror and crime stuff here, and then I'll come in and I'll do just the bright, happy, like the feel good. Well, not really feel good. The optimistic, do-gooder stuff that makes me feel good, and then we'll just murder a bunch of people on the side.
What's the title called?
It is called Camp Yellowwood Slaughter, and the conceit behind it is that it is a a horror movie that no one knew existed, and this is the comic book adaptation of that horror movie that was made in the 80s. So yeah, it's a lost to time slasher made by a giallo director who's kind of past his prime because giallo had its heyday in the 70s and slashers
Yes.
had its heyday in the late 70s, early 80s.
Suspiria,
Is when
I
it
Spit on Your
started.
Grave.
Right. So the idea is that he was the director in Italy there, and then as that industry wound down, he came over here to try to make a slasher film, and he did. But he also made a giallo film in just here, and I love it. And Alejandro is a huge. He's got giallo like deep to his core. He loves it so much, and he's a lot of fun to hang out with, and I think we did something kind of interesting and fun and unique, and I'm hoping people dig it. I know one of our stretch goals was a movie ticket bookmark, and we've already hit that. So you're getting cool stuff. You're getting cool stuff. So please, if you're interested, feel free to go back that and have some schlocky fun with us.
Did you do a mock movie poster?
They so the way that they did it, it's funny you said it, they had the artist Asperia Vilches come in and do the painted cover, and they wanted it to feel like that. So then Dylan Todd, designer extraordinaire, came in and mocked up a fake movie poster, but he also mocked up a fake VHS cover. So
Beautiful.
we have an edition of the book that's going to look like a busted, dusty VHS sleeve. And like, yeah, it's just great, man. They're on it. It's I couldn't be happier with them as a team in terms of doing unique, interesting things, including this Nighthawk Theater in Brooklyn. They put up on the marquee Camp Yellowwood Slaughter, 16 millimeter, and the idea was that people, if they came and asked about it, they would give them the ash cans for the
Smart.
campaign.
Yes.
Yeah, and they filmed the video for the campaign in that theater. It's really cool. They did a lot of fun stuff, and I'm excited. I'm hoping people enjoyed. I'm excited to know that this thing that I've been working on for a year now is like not only finished but officially going to be out there in the world. And everything I've seen from Ghost Flying Press, they make really great quality stuff. And I haven't had my stuff in a hardcover officially. I've got a Spanish edition Superman 78 metal curtain from the publisher in Spain. I saw it and I had an editor send me a copy, but it's not quite the same as having like my
I get it.
hardcover.
Yeah.
And as a book nerd, hardcovers, they're just so nice.
Yes.
I'm hoping we can get to that point. Let's have some like beautiful hardcover edition of this book. I'm hoping we can get that locked in and get it in my hands, and then you guys can have some too. But I want it.
I get it.
The
No, I
important
get,
thing.
another podcaster, 11 o'clock comics, Jason Wood, he always calls the really high deluxe hardcovers shelf porn. And it's like, yeah, man. No, I get that's exactly what it is. So Camp Yellowwood Slaughter, correct?
Yep, Camp Yellowwood
Beautiful.
Slaughter.
All right, beautiful, everybody. So look up for Kickstarter, Camp Yellowwood Slaughter and Gavin Guidry. And I'm sorry, again,
Alejandro Arbona.
Alejandro Abrano.
And
Okay, very good.
and the publisher is Goats Flying Press, and they exclusively do their stuff through Kickstarter. So they were like a really great publisher to team up with because that's their bag, and they're on it because an hour and we were already done. So we did what we needed to do as at a base already. So yeah,
Well, that's good.
I'm
And I'm
very
sure they've
excited.
got their Kickstarter community that wanted to back it. But I'm glad you're here. And I'm sure you're making the rounds as well on other podcasts to make your DC and Marvel fans know about it as well. So that's
Yep.
great, man. No, that's terrific, dude. And that is exactly what you hope for on a lot of these crowdfunding projects, that they are passion projects and
Mhm.
something you guys get to do beyond work for the big two and things. And certainly it's also used for people to break in. But
Yeah.
no, this is great. And I'm very happy for you. And it sounds fantastic, man. So well done. And again, man, we're just a couple weeks away, everybody, from JSA 8. I realize it's a Michael Cho cover now,
Yeah.
but and I've seen the future. I've seen the interiors. It's a great story, and it's a great look back at a 1940s Justice Society adventure that's only going to get more complicated as it continues. Very, very cool. And yeah, man, no, you did a hell of a job with Johnny Sorrow, like you said, and all the other Golden Age and new characters that are in the book. You're gonna have to tell me off the air like I said, who some of these people are. But and thank you for putting me, God, in Superman 78. Are you kidding me? Jesus. So that's a hell of a tribute, man. And yeah, again, good luck with more. Do you have more Marvel stuff coming up?
With Marvel, no, they reached out to me about doing something, but they were a little late. I'd already signed on to do Action Comics, and I'd already signed on to do this next stint of JSA. And it was the thing that I was interested in, but I would have had to be done with JSA like maybe 3 weeks earlier than I could reasonably done with, and I probably won't be done with it until even 2 weeks after that. So yeah, it just wouldn't have worked out. And I'm big on like I'll squeeze in things that I know I can get done, but if I don't think I can get it done, I'm not gonna sink other people by like over promising on what I don't think I can deliver on, because I
I
know that
respect
that's
that.
the slippery slope, right? I've
Yeah.
yet to miss a deadline, and I'm really doing my damnedest to never have that be the case. Although Uncanny X-Men and Action Comics put me to the test. This past few months was a tight go, but thankfully things have slowed down. Speaking of Action Comics, actually, I just remembered Action Comics 1086 is on shelves tomorrow, May 14th. So if
Oh,
you're watching
beautiful.
live now, Action Comics this week, it's the part 2 of 2.
That's you and Willow.
G.
That's you
Willow.
and G.
Yep,
Willow Wilson.
yep. And
Cool.
Trish Mulvihill did the colors. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to get to come back to Superman, and I got to do an Arctic costume, which being a kid of the '90s is like I had all those different toys of like Arctic Batman, Sub-Zero Batman, Flying Night Batman, Laser Batman. So it was really really fun to get to kind of do that same thing, and
Yeah.
people responded pretty positively to the outfit, so it was neat.
Another issue that I read, actually, now that you mention it, and again, shame on me for not realizing I was looking at Gavin Guidry art.
Yeah,
But yeah, that
the
Arctic
white,
Superman suit
yeah,
is really cool.
that
Very
was
cool.
fun.
So beautiful. Final comment. Let's see. King of New York. John looks especially like Reed Richards today, and I love
Oh
it.
yeah,
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I
yeah.
got the. Yeah, I got him. I know. Well, that's why I got to slim down so I can wear the costume. The other people are like Nick Fury, man. I'm like, sure, I'll take it. You know.
Well, then let me ask you, like, how do you feel about the big thing about Fantastic Four with this most recent trailer was that we saw Reed stretching finally.
Yes,
I think it looks pretty damn good
I
because it
agree.
looks like his mass is moving less than just like his arm is elongating.
Yes.
And I think it looked real good for the little snippet that we got. I'm very very excited, and I think Fantastic Four is one of those properties too. It's not a '40s property, but that Silver Age thing I love too. So like I'm excited that they're kind of leaning into that again.
100%, and that early 60s aesthetic. Matt Wagner was on with me years ago and said that these characters work best when they stay in the decade in which they were created. And yeah, man, it's like no, and I had been saying, I mean, I didn't mind the Tim Story FF movies from 20 years ago. I was okay with those. But it's
Hmm.
like, no, man, you got to put them, and we'll see what this earth is, because, we'll just see. But I appreciate that early 60s Cold War aesthetic,
Hmm.
because it was a Cold War story. It was, coming out of that sci-fi late 50s, early 60s period. And that's where they work best. And I still love the FF. And man, everybody's just killing it on FF and have been for the last few years and stuff. I love what Ryan North and company have been
Hmm.
doing. But yeah, no, I'm very excited, and especially we're getting real Galactus. I mean, the Cloud Galactus was
Right,
like,
right. That was always my thing. Was yeah, it's a thing too. Just like don't be embarrassed about it. Just do the thing. If you're gonna do the thing, do the thing.
you
We're
got it.
getting robots. We're getting Kellex.
Yeah, yeah, they
We're
made
getting
Herbie look cool.
Crypto. We're
Fucking
getting
Herbie,
Herbie.
man.
Yeah, they're doing it. Like let's do the damn thing then.
Yep.
Another thing though you mentioned the Fantastic Four with Ryan North. The thing that Ryan's doing that I really love that I want more publishers to do in this superhero space is go back to these short stories. These 2 and 3 issue arcs or single issue
Yep.
stories. I'm a huge fan of those. I'm fine with the six writing for the working for the trade. I understand that, but I think
Sure.
that if you break those up with shorts in the middle, that's the best way to do this. And I miss those days. And believe me, there's been talks about doing Hawkman and having like a fun adventure book with Hawkman where he might have a 6 issue arc, but it's also a lot of like one and done kind of or two and done things where you get in and out and it's short and sweet and perfect. I'm a huge fan of that stuff.
Me too, man. That's the era that I grew up in, And no, it's meant a lot when the Norths and the Dan Slots have gone back to that kind of single and two-part stories. And it's like, no, you can do it. And if anything, too, make a trade and make a bunch of two or one shots connect and tell a bigger story. But you got to make the issues count, man. That's what both of them. And also a lot of Image Books and other publishers, when they have like a first issue, it's like, hey, man, if you're going to end on a cliffhanger, you better give them enough of a story in that first issue to make us go, okay, do I want to continue? And if it's just, all right, 20 pages and a cliffhanger, it's like, I don't know, good luck, So,
like, I appreciate the decompressed era, especially because I was reading in it as a young reader. And I appreciate what came from that era, but I do feel like a lot of storytelling is so decompressed that, like, I think, let's compress it, let's squeeze it in there a little bit more again.
I hear you. Carrie's wishing us well and says, a nice short is always refreshing between long series, gives everyone involved a breather and is refreshing. I completely agree.
Sure.
Absolutely, man.
100%.
Well, dude, way to go. And seriously, it's so great to meet you and get to know you a bit. And please come back. Seriously, let me know what's going on. Obviously, I know you got this other time period JSA story coming up, but everything, man, way to go. And again, we're just a couple of weeks away from JSA issue 8. Yep. And also, again, tomorrow, as Gavin
Action
said,
Comics.
part two of the G. Willow Wilson story that he did for Action. And I've already read it. It's fantastic. So very cool. Way to go, man. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm really glad we talked today.
Look, pleasure to be on the show. Like, I'll come back frequently. I don't know if we'll have a fireside chat or a Bendis tapes or whatever, but hey, like, I'll gladly come talk whatever.
We'll have to come up with a Cajun euphemism for our conversations.
We'll figure something out.
Absolutely, man. Bayou time or something. I don't know. And if I don't know. We'll think of something. But thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and listening. Let's see. Coming up, what do I got? I got Al Ewing's going to be on Friday, and I think I'm talking to Matt Bors Thursday night. Of course, Matt Bors now doing the Toxic Avenger.
Perfect.
I forget which publisher has the book right now. I don't know if it's Ahoy. I forget right now. Everybody, forgive me.
There's some things that just sound right, and Matt Bors' Toxic Avenger just sounds right.
I'm with you, man. No, I'm looking. I've been wanting to talk to him ever since it was announced that he was doing it. So we're finally talking on Thursday. So Thursday and Friday are all locked up, everybody. I hope you join us then for Word Balloon Lives. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.